I'm Igor Goldkind, and I'm a poet and a scholar, and a lot of things. But tomorrow, Saturday, the 25th of April, we have an album. Myself and Frédéric have done a compilation of 18 tracks called The Viral Monologues. And these are based on monologues and poems, poetic recitations, poetry that I've written over the last 2 months during the pandemic self-isolation, and which about the pandemic. And some of them are some of my pieces are very reassuring. They're to give you hope, and other pieces are to steal that hope back from you. So okay. I hope you enjoy it.
Oh.
And thank you very much to UNIC6 for producing this excellent collaboration. Electroacoustic universal art music. And also thank you to IRREALIST film, music, and art editions. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we can say something that's worth listening to.
Yes. So, hi, Igor.
Hello, Frédéric. It's so nice to see you again.
Yes. At the end, we are ready for the launch of the new album.
That's right. Tomorrow, the Viral Monologues, and it's thanks to you that that we've been able to achieve that. Well, it's our achievement, but it's thanks to you that we've been able to achieve this. It has to click, you know. It's not the intention. Intentions, you know. It's like, have you ever seen those big budget Hollywood films that have like a cast of like a dozen stars? They're great actors, and you think this is going to be a great film. And you see it, and it's rubbish. And you go, how did they blow it with all this talent? And the reason is because they didn't catch the moment of the work. The work has to exist in its own moment in time. And I think that what we've done is the same. You've channeled that because we were both isolated, self-isolated at home. We both have projects that were probably on hold. Mine were because of this pandemic. And so the opportunity, and then I happened to do that Facebook thing just out of boredom. And then you picked up on that, and we went back and forth. So it kind of has its own, the work has its own rhythm of being. You know, its own way of coming into the world.
Yes, when I saw your video on Facebook, I said, now I got what I want. What I'm interesting to work on it. It didn't matter the quality, if it was done in a very good music studio. We wanted so much high potential on our collaboration. We have been discussing from and backward about the possibility. We was thinking about going to Los Angeles or to San Diego and recording in the Stevie Wonder studio, for example, or coming to Sweden or whatever. But we didn't find really the possibility. But then when I saw your interview, I said, yes, now I got the message. I want to work on it. And you got direct in my brain, you got direct in my art, you get direct in my feelings, and I said, now I want to work on this. And your recording, your sound recording, I understood that I could make it slightly better.
Well, there's a reason. I mean, we've got to know each other better over the last couple of years, but also, you know, if we're going to have, if I'm going to put a label on what you do and what I do, you know, I would call you an avant-garde artist. And, you know, in all you do, in your painting, in your music, you know, your sculpture, everything you're trying to do is pushing the limits of definition, the limits of the familiar. And I am trying to do the same thing in a much more difficult way because I'm using language, words, not as conversation, but as substance. So what's interesting about the recording that we've done is that you've taken certain phrases and echoed them, because those phrases became crystallized. They became firm in your mind, in your cognizance, right? So they became more than just my words. They became your understanding.
Yes.
And that's what you underline by bringing the background, bringing other sounds, because you're showing your understanding, you know, of the words. And I say the words because when I'm composing them, when I'm working on them, yeah, they're mine until I get them right. But as soon as I get them right, it's like a bird, it just takes off.
Yes.
It can be shot, or it can be captured or whatever, but it's not mine anymore. It belongs to the sky. And
you give me wings.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm very delighted that you didn't get choked about my experimental way of working, because I like you said, I'm pushing all the time, even in the material knowledge, you know, material. I try to make it until before it's breaking, you know, something like this.
But
at the limit. Yeah.
I've never been a popular artist. I have never enjoyed popular work. But what I like are people who are in the popular media who try to subvert it. And I mean people like Patti Smith when I was younger, Iggy Pop, you know, a lot of people talk about David Bowie, but he kind of made his idiosyncrasy mainstream. But Brian Eno is somebody I admire very much, because they're working within nearly acceptable parameters, but pushing against the wall, and it makes it exciting. It makes it vibrant.
That's what I mean with no hiding words, you know, no beautiful words or hiding words, just a pure thing, you telling straight on an idea, and not make something
contrived.
Melodic
or contrived. Yeah. It's a very difficult discipline, and I'm sure you're aware of it in the visual arts, especially if you've had a lot of training. You know, when you're creating, oftentimes the voices in the eyes that are working in your head are other people's. Yeah. And you're trying to achieve something. You're judging it based on what other people's impressions might be. And it's very difficult to get rid of that noise, that clutter, and become plain speaking. Just, you know, what is it I'm trying to say? How do I swing it? You know,
yes, sir. I was afraid that maybe you could have been a little bit more shocked about what I did, about your poems and the music I put on it, and
I'm not that precious. I'm not that precious.
It's not very melodic. It's experimental for mostly.
It's avant-garde. What I call avant-garde. And,
yes.
Believe me, if I hadn't liked anything you were doing, you would have been the first to hear about it.
Yeah.
And I took longer to listen to it several times and to make notes, because there were things I didn't like, but I realized that rather than saying, "Oh, I just don't like that," it was more, what don't I like? What needs to be tweaked? What needs to be improved? Or does it just need to be turned? Oh, look, you just turned the painting upside down. Now it works. You know, it's just whatever makes it work. And I think that I think that you pushed the words into a further dimension, and hopefully that will work. Hopefully that will work for the reader, or for the listener, for the audience. You know, I think it's very important. I don't want to get too didactic here, but you know, I'm a big fan of Sigmund Freud's interpretation of dreams, and I know it's very old school, and there's a lot of justifiable anti-Freudian feminist sentiment. You know, But that aside, in the interpretation of dreams, Freud is very adamant. He says a dream has three parts, three components, And you must have these three components in order for it to be a dream. Number one, he says, is the dream, the experience of the dream. Okay? But that's not enough. Because when you wake up, you have to remember the dream. And the memory of the dream is the first interpretation, because it's bringing it from the chaos of the unconscious into a more structured reality of memory. What happened? Were you putting things together? What happened? And then what happened? And then something else pops. Oh no, and now I remember. So you put it together, right? So that's the second component. The third is equally important, and that is when you recount the dream to someone else.
Yes.
And I feel that that's the creative process right there. It's you know, you have to be able to tell it, to convey it.
Yes.
You know.
But in the Viral Monologues album, I catch it, the words, I catch the idea, I catch it, and I try to express, to push it on, and to make it a bit stronger and only words, and I try to find the balance also between words and the image of the sound somehow. So you may be a bit shocked because it's not the pure language, a pure voice, and the pure sound of your voice. But then sometimes the music is higher, because maybe sometimes I didn't like some words, for example, and I try to make a ratatouille over there, because I try to hide it, and some other words I put it up and I want to repeat them many times, and that's my interpretation of your words and the feeling I've got of your words, and I think this album, Viral Monologues, which I wrote a bit that it's a state of mind. I was not sure it was a state of mind or if it was.
Everything's a state of mind. Everything's a state of mind.
Yes.
When do you leave your mind behind? When is your mind not there? You know?
There is a lot of popular music and popular poetry that try to make only beautiful things, and that's what I mean with a balance between what is good and what is bad, what is beautiful and what is ugly. It try to make a balance between several words, and when you try the right balance, so the beat getting well, I think. If it's too nice, it's publicity. It's
Well, it's
popular music. You know, there is school for that.
Yeah, and there are some people, I think, like Johnny Cash. Gosh, who else? Maybe the Beatles too, who have been able to work within, you know, the acceptable or the popular, and still retain their individual voice and their uniqueness, and they become known as great artists, because not only are they, you know, not only can I hear them, but they touch me deeply. So then, you know, and avant-garde, the disadvantage we have in avant-garde is we're not so much interested in the popularity. It's more like, do we make the point or not? And,
no, but I was thinking about rap music, for example. Rap music is a lot of words, you know. They're using a lot of words, and sometimes it's very interesting. But then the music is always the same rhythm,
bass,
the same
drums and bass.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do culturally with the African American experience from the plantation through jazz to rap. You know, there's a lineage that it's hard for us to understand culturally, not because of our skin color, but culturally we've never been treated the way American blacks have. So we don't have that history, we don't have that need to address our legacy. And, you know, rap came out of, the rappers I liked were the first, you know, they call them old school gangsters now. You know, NWA, Public Enemy, Ice Cube, Ice T, you know, and they were political. I mean, there was the anger was there, the aggression was there, but it was because of the police. You know, I mean, it's you remember that song, "Fuck the Police." You know,
Yes.
and that aggression is authentic. You may not agree. You may not agree. You may not want to fuck the police. You may like the police. You have to call the police when there's a black man on your front door. You know, but that.
Especially if you are famous, maybe you like the police, especially when you are very famous. And then there is the beat poet. The beat poet, you know, I try to figure out your style, poetry style.
It's very influenced by. When I was young, when I was in college, I went and I listened to a lot of beat poets: Allen Ginsberg, Charles Bukowski, William Burroughs, Ian Duncan, Gary Snyder, Rex Roth. I mean, I was a huge poet fanboy. You know, I thought that the poets themselves were like rock stars.
Yes.
And so I used to try to imitate their style. I tried to write like them. I was a groupie. I was basically a beat groupie when I was in my late teens and early 20s. And that's where that influence comes from.
Yeah, that's where we begin to meet also around the beat poet, the new beat poet. What we did in Stockholm and what you did in San Diego with the Beat Poet, the group of the Beat Poet Foundation, for example, where we have been talking and collaborating with previous albums, and I was thinking that's interesting. There is a lot of blues and rock in the Beat Poet also.
Yeah.
We go from
blues and jazz. Rock and roll was kind of a departure. There was a splintering off.
Yeah.
When around Ken Kesey and the Grateful Dead and the Jefferson era, those San Francisco music bands took the same spirit further, but left a lot of the traditional beats behind. Jack Kerouac hated hippies. He thought hippies were just a waste of time, and the whole psychedelic culture. Allen Ginsberg has a famous quote that I've. And in it,
I was thinking about Bob Dylan, more the blues, American blues, more quiet rock. Maybe can you call it? So
yeah, I don't want to teach you, but I distinguish between the blues, which to me is a black music and derives from the plantation songs, and roots music, which is white. It can be black too, but it includes white people. Blues is definitely a black sound. That's an African American art form. That many white, they're great white blues players, but it comes from that legacy, from that tradition. Roots is what Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie, and a lot of contemporary musicians are doing, which is going back to that old, it's all lower class, it's all working class, it's all poor,
Yes, it's quite common, the blues and the rock and even the rap. It's popular music, you can call it a little bit, and that's what I didn't want to fall down in this world. I mean, I like rap music, I like blues, I like rock, even jazz. I don't hear so much jazz because it's not very popular. That's what I like. And then experimental music and noise music too. Lately, I'm very interested about noises, sounds and noises, and yes.
John
So
Cage.
exactly. I've been working with Jerome Parker-Well from make a video for at the John Cage Foundation in New York.
Wow.
I don't have the. I have the video. It's for private use on YouTube. This John Cage performance at the John Cage Foundation, but I don't have the right to publish it because
I heard John Cage perform at the Beaubourg in Paris. And it was only because I had a French press pass that I was even able to get tickets. There were complimentary tickets. Very, very rare, very scarce. But yeah, I was pretty amazed because the experience worked for me. You know, he took me where he wanted to take me, and you know, I can almost hear it still. I'm not gonna tell you the story right now. We have other things. There are more important things we can talk about.
I want to talk more about this monologue, viral monologue album, because there is 15 tracks in the album, and all of them are not only talking about viral things. It's talking about. I told you about. I saw at the meeting. It's a monologue, yeah? And then it came. 5 poems in it too. There is 5 published poems that you have been.
It's a mixture. I mean, what I like about your sampling is you take my conversation and mix with my recitation. It's both my monologue and my reciting poetry. And I think that what's interesting about what you've exposed is the process that I just described, out of taking words that just come out of your mouth and using them as a rock, and to make certain things permanent, certain phrases or permanent, like viral monologue or being is becoming still. I mean, that resonates. It's like it's hitting a bell. Being is becoming still. In a bell, and you keep hearing, you keep comprehending it, you know. Yeah. And to me, that's the end. That's the material I'm trying to produce. I'm trying to produce bells, you know.
Yes, yes, and that was very interesting, because it's kind of you have the rhythm in your talking. There was a very strict very tight rhythm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I could find the tact, you know. I was very delighted when I found the tact, you know, say tack, 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 and all the words they fall down at the right moment. You know. So it gave me the rhythm of the pieces.
Of the word.
And yes,
that's very sophisticated. That's a much more sophisticated doing things. It's I prefer to work with, because there are many people who want to offer to accompany my words or do a track for my words, and I've always kind of had, and I just think it's awful, because there's no mesh between the sound and the meanings of the words. It's just like elevator music, and I would rather just hear him recite than hear. But what you've done is create a mix. The word, the voice is one thing, and you're integrating my voice with other instruments. But then there's the comprehension that follows, because language hits twice. There's the sound. If somebody says your name, Frédéric, you hear your name before you understand it's yours. You know, know. Okay, but there are other words that comprehension has to kick in. So there's a delayed cognition. So I'm sorry, I'm talking about how I produce things. So
no, it's okay. It's interesting. It's interesting. But like I have been writing at the good, the bad, the sacred, the profane. It makes a balance, a rhythm. It keeps the silence, or the one sound, the other sound, the rhythm, all mixed together. I can't explain exactly, because I'm French.
No. Well, I think the fact that your nationality, the French expresses the intention. And I think that just comes with education and culture. But the process for me is to hear the sound first, and then I'm waiting. So there's a way I want to hit you initially by saying your name, by calling you from across the room, and then then I want to estimate the time of cognition. It might be seconds, 1 second, 1 beat, for you to get, Frédéric, pass me a beer. Okay? Now you hear your name first. Okay, so I've got your attention, but pass me a beer it's one more beat to comprehend what the fuck I want from you. Why am I calling you? I want you to pass me a beer. So do you see, it's two, one follows the other. One steps in. The comprehension always follows the sound.
Yes, and I catch it. I think I catch it, the sound of your poetry, and I catch it, the rhythm of your poetry, and that gave me the tune, and they gave me the rhythm, and then it was easy to work on it. Then it just came out with feeling.
Yeah, intuitively. Yeah. Well, that's because it's working, obviously. Now. We're doing, but the work is also very contextual. I mean, the way that this album has come together has been very much out of the context of its subject.
Yes.
We have this time to do this album because what else are we doing? I mean, although they just announced in California that they're going to open up business on May 3rd.
Okay. In France, May 11th in France.
Right.
But let's go back to the album. There is 15 tracks in the album, and I could do 15 tracks. You can imagine it's a double album, in fact, 15 tracks. And
it's good value for money. It's good value for money.
Yes, so there is some track like Safe Zone or Vinyl Monologues or Pandemic Panic. We Contain the Virus, and that's clear. It's about Corona pandemic. It's clear.
It's more than about the virus. It's about truth. It's about accepting the truth. And your visual really pointed it for me is that, you've used a picture of a flower. I don't know if those are the flowers in your backyard.
Yes, they are. Yes.
It looks like the form is similar to the coronavirus. So the statement really is, by the way, this virus that we're all worried about, this virus that has shut down the world, this virus that has caused this economic collapse and people to stand still, this virus is nature. It's as legitimately here as we are, and it's as beautiful or as horrible as a bee and a flower. And so you can't. So that's the truth. We can't interpret the truth and pretend that the virus is our enemy. Like they say, we're fighting a war. Well, not really, because the virus, if you fight a war, you're fighting something with intentions. The virus has no intention except to survive.
No, my intention in this album is I want to show that you can transform something very negative to something very positive, and depends how you look at it. I've been doing that in architecture, in design. I said, there is a problem. You solve the problem, then you find a solution, and when you find the solution, you get something good of it. All problems is not necessarily a problem. Maybe it gives something better for the future, and realize that nature is nature too.
Yeah, well, I think that's an important truth for people to realize, because the history of our exploitation of the planet is based on an antagonistic relationship. Human beings separated, that we separate ourselves from nature, and we go, okay, nature's there. It's like this teenage. It's like this, something to exploit. You know, it's
Yes.
like, oh, I'm going to take advantage
Yeah.
of this. And of course, we're taking advantage of ourselves because we're part of the same thing. And you can see where it's wound up. You know, we've set the house on fire. You know, it's because of perception. And this is
Yeah.
my important. This is what I want to say to you. When you talk about the sacred and the profane, the good and the evil,
Yeah.
it's a puzzle because it isn't like a choice.
No.
It is a choice, except that it isn't two choices. The third choice is the right choice, and that
Yes.
is to perceptually overcome the duality.
Yeah.
Dichotomy.
The solution. That's what I mean. The solution.
Yeah, yeah.
We have the solution, and that's why I use the flower like a symbol of something bad, but it's something good, smelling good or looking good. But it's very, it's like the virus. Maybe the virus will give us something good at the end.
Hey, if a bee stings you, is it evil?
Yes, exactly. But
You know, reality is beyond. I mean, come on.
yeah,
She told us a long time ago. Reality, the truth of reality, is beyond our notions of good and evil.
yeah.
You know, that's where Christianity really screwed things up for us.
But what I want to show in the album, it's artists are like magicians. They can transform something very bad, like a
Alchemy.
magician with fire, blowing fire and everything.
Alchemy. Yeah, alchemy.
Yes, and suddenly it's making something beautiful of it, you know. And what's our situation? It's we are very pushed situation of isolation where we are alone, when we can't meet anybody else in the street, or it's difficult to. And then we find something in any way good, very good in it. For example, our collaboration.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, do you remember Aristotle? You know, it's an old drinking buddy of mine. But you know, Aristotle talked about the three virtues being, you know, truth, good, and beauty. Except that we confuse ourselves if we mix them up, because what is true is not always beautiful, nor is it always good. What is good is not always beautiful, nor is it always true. And what is true is not always good or beautiful. And they're different states of mind. There you go. They're different states of mind. Good is what's good for me.
Yeah.
And if you ignore yourself, you know, if you ever use the word good without referring to yourself and your own preferences, then you're deluding yourself. The only good is what works for you. You know, it's only tyrants and religious figures that say, "I know what is good for everyone." You know, I know what is the good.
Yes.
Right? And then, you don't think it's good? Well, put him in jail. You know, you don't think it's good? Well, you know, shoot him. You know, so anytime anybody talks about what is good, if they're not personalizing it, if not they're saying, you know, this is my good, then they're lying. And so the difference between good and evil is between what's good for me and what's not good for me.
What is good for me, it's accident, something you don't expect to happen, and you repeat them, and then suddenly it creates something rhythmic, something interesting, like in painting, for example. When you make a mistake, we have a big mistake. Oh, I make a mistake, and then you can put like this, you can make like this on your mistake, and then suddenly it becomes something great, you know. So you can transform the mistake to something, some knowledge, and you can transform it to something more interesting, because you are not you cannot control it. But then when you find a solution, then you get to something essential. But coming back to the viral monologue album, you talk about paperback, for example. That was I like it. Paperback. Yes.
Well, thank you. That was published in. It's the oldest poem. It was published in San Diego on the cover of a newspaper to start Poetry Month last April, a year ago in April. April's Poetry Month, so they published it, and I was very, I was delighted that they did that, because it was a lot of people trying to get it. No money, of course. Nobody ever pays for poetry, but Paperbag is a very personal work because I had to include myself. Paperbag is successful for me in terms of my personal aims, because I was able to take my own feeling, my own sense of identity, and drill down, dig, I dig, like beatniks say, do you dig it? Yeah, you dig down until I find everyone else.
Okay.
And then I just to adjust the words slightly so that they speak not just to me, but they speak to everyone else I found down there.
Oh, okay.
In a Jungian sense,
Okay. Now, but I like the idea. The paperback is very well about plastic bag too. It's an indirect confrontation with plastic bag.
Except there's a very important distinction.
Yes.
Plastic bags are killers.
Of course. That's why we are living in a change. This corona.
Yeah, paper bags don't kill anybody.
No.
Even if you tried to smother somebody with a paper bag, they're porous enough that you can still breathe.
Yes.
But that plastic is what is killing
But that's why I use it. That's why I wanted to use this poem also in this album, because it's talking about problems that nowadays we have with plastic bags, but with the corona, and you talk about different things about the stars, and also all the research doing, all the money going to research to find another planet in case this planet is dying or something like that. And then all the titles, all the pieces in this album talking about real question about what's happened today. Not the corona is just one drop. The corona is only one drop. Then there is all other things you've been talking in the album, which is also, and love also, the love with the first color crutch.
There's a bit of nostalgia in there as well, but these are all images and ideas that are part of my world. I have no other inspiration except the world I find myself in. And to me, the interest is, people talk about quantum universes a lot now, and mainly people don't understand quantum physics, talk about multiverses and lots of different worlds, and every time you make a choice, there's another. Well, you can look at things like that, but it's not very useful. What is useful is to look at one world. There is only this world, but there are many, many ways of seeing it. Quantum perception is what I call it. The variations are the perceptions of the same thing.
Yes, I'm interested about that too myself also. I make some kind of research or things. But we could talk many hours, Igor, about that. The last thing is living with a certainty.
Living with uncertainty.
Yes, sorry for my French.
That's okay. What's the opposite of certitude? Incertitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
Living with incertitude. Yeah. Okay. What do you want to know? I'm uncertain. I don't know what you're trying to ask me. I'm uncertain. What are you trying to ask me? Living with uncertainty.
No, but about what is uncertain? Living.
Yeah. Okay. The idea comes from again looking at the overall theme of benefits and deficits, trying to understand the reality that we're experiencing from a different perspective. You can talk about the fact that ICE has shut down, that they're finally housing the homeless in California. All of these resources that were always there that were never used, now they're being used because we recognize that we're all in this together. We're all, equally vulnerable to this virus, which is where the title Mutually Assured Vulnerability comes from. But living with uncertainty is because, in my perspective, what we've had is a revealment. It's just the universe and a profound revealment. And the revealment that we've had, which, certain people have always known, is that, apart from the fact that this is the only moment that there is, and that all other moments are accessed from this one, there's also the fact that we have no idea what's going to happen next.
No.
And the more we invest in estimates of what will happen next, the more disappointed we are, the more suffering, because we have an attachment to, this outcome, this is what happens next. Oh no, it didn't. Oh, I failed. Oh, fucking universe, and the problem isn't the outcome. The problem is our expectation of an outcome. And uncertainty, this virus has taught everyone very, very solidly in the privacy of their own home that you have to learn to live with uncertainty if you want to be happy.
Yeah.
And the more you invest in certainty, the more unhappy you're going to be, because nothing is certain. Nothing is certain.
Yeah, you'll be in jail, closed.
Yeah, but you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Now, part of the reason that we are so invested in outcomes is a psychological. It's actually a metaphysical psychological condition, and I've learned this from observing what's going on, and that is our comprehension of the events that happen to us in terms of causality and in terms of outcome. What are my actions and what are the consequences are all done backwards. Our memory recalls what we did before what happened, so we make a connection.
Yeah.
Right. But
remember,
we see all of reality backwards. To be meaningful, it is backwards. To see the truth of reality, you have to look forwards. And you have to accept that you have no fucking idea of what is going to happen next, no matter what you do.
No.
There is certainly, absolutely no certainty.
No, I'm agree, because I'm always visions. I get visions to do new things, create new things, is to have vision, to look at the future. How it could be in the future, how you're going to make it in the future, and that's what's interesting me very much. And that's why artist is important for this, for evolution of society.
Our artist expression is the shaman who is tapped into the reality of existence and explores. I'm going to start this painting. I'm going to see what happens here. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm willing to surrender to the event, to whatever it is. And if it doesn't work, fuck it, gone. But the best things I have ever done, I have never planned. And thank you so much to Electroacoustic Universal Art Music, or UNIC6, who produced this album, an experimental avant-garde album of poetry and music, and I really I couldn't have done it without you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, here I am, stuck inside. It's not unusual for me. I don't mind being stuck inside. I spend a lot of my life stuck inside. This is one of the rare occasions, however, where